Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, I should say first before I go in to say, it's just a couple of days until Christmas and the holiday, and you're probably going to be seeing or being around friends, family, and you may be wanting to share with them some of the tea discoveries that you've had this year. Let them, maybe some of those reluctant or people who are new to tea, to kind of experience something new. So I hope that goes well. A tea that we're going to be looking at today may be one of those that you want to share with those close to you. So let's go ahead and get this one started. This is a black tea. If there's certain people around you who are, say, getting away from coffee, who may be more comfortable with a black tea, this is something to consider. This is a Darjeeling First Flush. I've got a tasting set, which is not the usual way of daily use of the tea, but this is something that tea professionals will use in tasting a tea. So I thought it would be a good standard way to look at black teas overall. So I'm going to use, because it's a kind of a bulky type leaf, I'm not going to use my spoon. I'm just going to reach in with my fingers. I'm going to grab a pinch here, drop it in, and my goal is to really kind of cover the bottom surface of that, so I don't see the bottom of this cup. If I shake that around, that really covers the bottom there, so that's a good start. Let me set that down carefully so the leaves don't spill out. My water's been brought to a boil and it's been cooling for about 1.5 minutes, but that's still going to be a good temperature for this. And I'm adding enough water so that when I let me set this out of the way first, because with a cup, a taster's cup like this, tasting set, you've got a little divot there, a little notch for pouring. So I want my water to be just below that, 1/4 inch or so. My lid has a hole, and I want to make sure I have that hole over towards the handle here. And I'll set that aside, let that steep for a while. As I kind of introduce this tea, this is, as I said, a Darjeeling Second Flush. This is from the Canton Tea Company. This is their Second Flush Margaret's Hope. Margaret's Hope is an estate well known for its Darjeelings, and it's the Margaret's Hope Silver Moon, one of the names that they've put here. A 10-gram sample is available for $4.50, and that's Canton Tea Company is based rather in the UK. So this is a shipping cost from the UK, even though it's outside it's not a domestic if you're in the US. Still very reasonable, quite competitive with US-based or domestic-based tea companies. Again, this is from the Margaret's Hope estate, and this is from the spring 2010 harvest. So if there's any of this left, which towards the end of the year can be a challenge to find some of this, we're going to decide, as we look at the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and liquor, decide if this is something that you want to grab at the last minute, especially if there are any kind of after Christmas specials. So let's look at this dry leaf. One of the things that I look forward to in a second flush is and especially certain estates in Darjeeling, is that nice aroma that comes off the dry leaf. There is a grape kind of smell, a red glow. The traditional is the muscatel, a muscat grape type smell coming off, and that's kind of the dominant, the only smell coming off this. So it's true, it's consistent, and it's strong. Okay, so looking at this dry leaf as well, just kind of take a pinch out here. Things you're going to be looking for are the variety of leaf types here. You're going to get an ochre, a dark seal brown type of color. That's one of them. You can get a rust type of color as well, kind of an auburn reddish brown type, which is the second most common, or second common one. And then the third is a silvery tip, fuzzy needle that you get, which was what I'm holding up here. Though all three of those are combined. Another little trick that some tea purveyors will use is that they will get a lower grade that has the seal brown and the rust or the auburn, and then they'll get a few separate needles and toss them in the mix. But an advantage of a good quality tea, Darjeeling like this, and even true with some others that can have tips, is that the tips are still attached with those other type of leaves, so that you get sets there. And I am seeing a mix of those. I'm seeing some that are individual tips, and then I'm seeing tips that are also still connected to those other leaves, which indicates that these are probably tips that broke off of what were, sets of the dark brown, the auburn, with those silvery tips. So that's a positive note. The other thing that as I look at this leaf, they are larger size leaves. A lot of these portions are over an inch in length. They are, again, you're getting sets or pairs, leaves together, still connected by along the very end of the branch there, so it's nice and tender. So those are all positives on this note. Tips that are connected to other leaves, not just tossed into the mix to make it look better. Pairs of leaves combined, and larger sized leaves. These haven't been chopped up to rush any kind of oxidation process. Let's go ahead now, and just to kind of show you what happens when you have a taster set. They come together with these two parts, or actually three pieces, the bowl, the cup, and the lid. And to pour them, you simply take your lid, hold it down in place, and tilt your cup into it. And by having your hole that we said, as you can see up here at the top, that allows more air to come through, and so you get a smoother pour as well. I'm going to tilt this up to get those last few drops out. Shake a few of them out. We'll set that aside. I'll go ahead and do it now. I'm going to pour this into the pitcher so that we can look at the color as well there. So that looks good. I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about this wet leaf. There's a baked type of smell. There's something a little bit lightly baked apricot, baked peach, but most of it is still that grape type of smell. There's a red globe grape. If you're able to bite into one of those or peel off some of the skin, there's some of the aromas that come off of especially the skin of like those larger red globe grapes. So those are positive notes for that. To look at the leaf, we're going to turn this upside down, give it a shake and loosen up those leaves so that they fall and rest there on the top of the lid. And leaf color has become more consistent. You get more uniform, narrower range, I should say, between like an olive drab, it's kind of a drab greenish color, over to a light rust. Everything's just become a little bit closer to consistent. Looking at these leaves, you are getting, here's a set, for example. Let me just kind of set that on the top. Still needles there showing up connected to other pieces. Let's look at some others. So you're getting various levels of oxidation is what I'm trying to say. So if you with the rust red, brighter reds there. Still several needles, tips there as well. Leaf sets, leaves that are not too ragged. They haven't been overly roughly abused there. For example, here's a nice large leaf as well. Okay, for most intact, a slight tear. Edges are still pretty smooth and consistent. Okay, so setting that aside, let's go now and talk a little bit about our liquor. One, we've got a nice, kind of a light caramel color, a nice brightness to it. You're getting some little bit of, you're getting some particulates floating around in there. That's probably like some down from the, for example, looks like down from the needles. The aroma is still consistent with some of those grape type smells. So that's a positive there. Let's give it a try here. One, it brings out those grape type notes. At the same time, it's not overly, it's not an intense cup. It's not strong on the briskness. It's lighter on the astringency, and it's got a lighter broth feel, mouth feel as well. As it cools a little bit, I'm picking up hints of a kind of menthol or bismuth type aspect to this tea. Something's coming out a little bit cooling there. It's picking up more so. I'm getting, especially as I slurp, the more I slurp, the more it draws out that menthol type cooling. In the back of my mouth, I'm still getting a light astringency, very mild, very gentle in comparison with most black teas, especially and several Darjeelings. And it's more of a fruit aftertaste. It's more of having eaten dried apricots. It's the aftertaste there. It's not harsh. It's not really bitter. It's more of that kind of like I said, a dried fruit type of component there. And that stays. It's light, but it lingers a little bit longer than some of the others as well. So when I look at this tea as a whole, I would give this tea a 90. It's got a lot of the characteristic muscatel type notes that many people come to expect from a Darjeeling. It does not bring a heavy menthol. It doesn't bring a strong briskness or a heavy astringency to it. Along with that, it also has a fairly light broth to it. So it's got some, depending on your expectation, it's got some things that are more admirable than others. But overall, that muscatel, that grape type notes, that fruity component stays throughout the cup and it's into the aftertaste. So come back to Walker Tea Review, where you may find this tea or other teas that you want to appreciate or explore yourself or share with others.